All right. Hello, everybody. I am here with Jon Loomer. My name is Lisa Larter, and thank you for joining us today. This interview is for members of the Pilot to Profit Success System. If you are watching this interview, it means that you benefited from my generosity today, because normally you don't get to see this stuff for free, but I know that the information that Jon has is so valuable that I wanted to share it with some extra people. And I also wanted to share it with some extra people because I wanted to thank him for his time and generosity. So Jon Loomer is an accidental marketing expert in the Facebook ads space. I stumbled upon Jon years ago and have actually hired him to help me even with my own understanding of Facebook ads. I have bought his programs for members of my team to go through so that they can learn about Facebook ads. His blog is one of the blogs that we follow on a religious basis. And I got to tell you, what I like about Jon is I like his realness. I like that he is not an egotistical internet marketer. I'll use those words. If you go to Jon's website and you read about him, you'll see that he puts family before everything. I was kind of interested, Jon, in the baseball stats thing. I wonder if that's why you're good at Facebook ads, because of the statistics, interesting curiosity around statistics. Yeah. But, aside from being really good at Facebook ads, what I like about Jon as a person are his core values. And you can read about his core values on his website at jonloomer.com under About. But I want to just skim over a few things. One, he states he values his family and time with them. He values his evening, weekends, and holidays. He does not believe in working around the clock, even though he shared with me before we started that he was up till 6. He was up.
This is very rare, very rare.
He was up till 6 a.m. doing that Canvas blog on his site. He doesn't obsess over money, and I love that, because I believe that when you do good work, money follows you. You don't need to obsess. He also doesn't like to be on the road constantly, which resonates with me, because I'm the same way. I get lots of offers to speak, and I prefer not to travel a ton, because I like to be at home as well. He values honesty and authenticity, which for me is really, really important. And I know that's one of the things that people tell me they like about working with me. And his goal for life and business is to make a difference. And, not only do you make a difference, Jon, but you're a good guy making a difference. So thank you for being here today. I really appreciate it.
Whew. You're going to get me emotional before we even start. As you said, I was up till 6 a.m., so I'm already tired and on the brink of emotion, and you're going to make me cry before we can get going here, Lisa.
No. So I had sent you all of the questions that were in our Facebook community from people. And I took a look at those questions, and I kind of categorized them, everybody, into 4 different areas. So 1, thinking about the strategy behind how to use Facebook ads. 2, what is the ideal Facebook ad list building email marketing campaign? 3, what is a campaign? And, there's all kinds of cool new things that you can do. I know my team's talking to me, I don't even remember the right term, Jon, about these tag things you can do on Facebook ads. So it's almost like your ads replicate what an email campaign would look like. What is a campaign, and what should people be looking at? Performance. There's a lot of confusion out there in terms of, clicks versus impressions, and, what number of clicks versus opt-ins, conversions is good versus bad. What should I expect to pay? And so I'd like to talk to you about all of that stuff, and then talk about where people can go to get more information, because clearly we've got an hour today, and we could probably spend a week with you and still not know everything there is to know. So why don't we start by, can you just give me some insight on, like, where do people start when they're looking at Facebook ads? There's so much information out there. How do you create a strategy around starting?
Yeah, so it's really important just to go basic in the beginning, because yes, it is absolutely overwhelming, the types of things you can do and eventually should do, but you're never going to perfect it all. I don't want you jumping in thinking, I need to do what all these other people have been doing who have years of experience. I think it's a matter of first understanding the types of types of goals they need to have with their ads, and kind of what you were saying, the type of structure a campaign should have, the type of, when I say, and kind of as you were saying, a campaign means different things. So like when I say campaign, yes, it means the campaign / ad set / ad, but also it means kind of your overall strategy with Facebook ads and why you do. Because I think a lot of times one of the big mistakes is people jump in and they're just trying to sell stuff all day and that's all they do. But you need to have a long-term goals, play a long game with this thing. So for me personally, an example would be, I've got 3 separate objectives. I have an objective to drive traffic. And the reason for that, there's lots of reasons, but the primary reason for that is I want to build my website custom audience of people who visit my website. So I drive traffic. Off of that, I build my email list. So it's like, okay, people who visit my website, now I want to introduce you to this opt-in of some sort. And again, it's going to work much more effectively targeting those people as opposed to someone who doesn't know who I am. And then I go to, okay, I'm going to sell something. But so I have all, you could have more objectives than that, but those are typically separated in 3 types of campaigns. But to make it all work, it's so important that you get the targeting right. And so, I hear a lot of people have a hard time getting started because they can't find the right audience. And that is the biggest challenge, because in the beginning, it's like, Facebook gives you all of these options to target people by interests and behaviors and, what is going to work and what doesn't. And yeah, it's frustrating. And you should remember how frustrating that is, because you don't want to stay targeting interests all day. You want to target people who know who you are. Right now, maybe no one knows who you are. Maybe 100 people do, or 1,000, whatever it is, and it's not enough. So again, one of our primary goals, primary objectives needs to be increasing that audience. Ideally, again, it's a website custom audience. It's a really powerful audience. So that's always one of my goals. And like even today, where I'm getting still 400,000 page views to my site every month. One of my primary objectives is I still spend money just to drive traffic, because I want to make sure that audience stays large, stays relevant. So then the other stuff I do remains effective. I feel like I covered a whole bunch of crazy stuff in there. I don't know how well I answered your question to start, but.
So let me just ask a couple of other questions. So you talk about audiences and you talk about getting more people to know you. So, and about building traffic. So if 100 people know about me and they're coming to my website and I am retargeting them basically because they're my custom audience from my website, how do I expand that reach if I'm not using interests?
So, no. So to be clear, interests have a purpose, especially in the early going. But that is top of the funnel stuff. So we're not going to target them necessarily. And look, I understand there's sometimes no way around it, that you need to target whatever you can to drive business and all that kind of thing. But knowing that these people are going to usually result in a lower conversion rate, I want to drive traffic. Knowing that these people are going to trust me less than someone who knows me. But if I'm not asking for anything from them, they're much more likely to actually click a link. So I just want to introduce them to who I am. So here's like the most popular blog post I have. Also not knowing how legit this interest is, right? So of this interest, how many of these people actually would care about anything I have to say? And so you can't always really trust that interest in the first place. So creating this ad that drives traffic based on a really relevant piece of content to your business, to your niche, to your industry, that also separates the cream from the crop, I guess. So they click that link to a useful, helpful article that doesn't ask for anything. So your conversion rate, or not conversion, your click rate should be good on that. So it's driving traffic. So that is top of the funnel, interest. And then from there, they visited that blog post, your website, whatever. So now let's take them to the next step. And it could be sharing more content with them. Okay, so I don't want to say, oh, my job sharing content with them is done. It's you want to build that trust even more, build that level of engagement that they have with you, so that they're more likely to. Because look, providing an email address takes a lot of trust. I don't give my email address to anybody. I don't want to get spammed, all that stuff. So we just assume, oh, it's free. Give them it. It's not free. You're asking for an email address. That is valuable to you and to them. So again, I'm wordy, but the interests have a purpose at the top of the funnel, but your goal should be 6 months from now, a year from now, you never need to target interests anymore, because that website custom audience is so large, and that email list and everything else you got going. These days, I never have to target interests. I don't need to anymore, because I spent so much time building that traffic.
So what happens is your custom audience, which is people who have come to your website, they start to see and engage and interact with your content in the newsfeed, and they share it, and you start to attract a bigger custom audience through them, correct?
That's a big part of it, right? So I hear a lot of people like, why would I target people who already visit my website? I want to attract new people. Well, first of all, the people most likely to click stuff from you in the first place know who you are, so let's share that to them. But they're also much more likely to engage with it, to share it with their friends, and bring people over so you don't have to pay to actually reach them. So yeah, this whole process is, we're building the traffic, we're building your email list. This morning, I'm embarrassed to say, when I published that blog post and I shared it to my list of over 100,000 people, it blew up my website for about 30 minutes. But that's the kind of thing that it's a good problem to have, right? But it happens because of all this time of driving website traffic in the first place. If all I did was relying on all these people that didn't know me running these Facebook ads, I would be treading water constantly. So
what is step one? If I want to just, first of all, when I teach people, I tell them that the funnel is at the top of the funnel. The widest part of the funnel is awareness. If people are not aware of you, they can't choose you. The second layer is visibility. They need to see you over and over and over again to get to know you and trust you and your content. The third layer of the funnel is engagement. At some point, they engage with your content in some way. The next layer is a lead, where they go from just being an observer to somebody who signs up and gives you their email address to hear from you. And then if they continue to like what you do, eventually they may turn into a customer. Do you look at the strategy, the funnel, the same way that I just explained?
Very similarly. I mean, I wrote a blog post, it might have been a couple of years ago now, about the 4-step Facebook sales funnel. That's the same type of thing. So yeah, I think what most marketers do, especially because they come from a Google ads world, is that they're like, oh, people are looking for my stuff. They have purchase intent. I'm just going to blast these people in their news feed to buy my stuff. You can kind of do that with a Google ad, because it's like, oh, they're searching for that solution. That's not happening on Facebook. So you have to have this much more of a funnel approach, where you introduce them first. So, that absolutely. And I think that first top of the funnel item, and you say, what's step one? I guess I'd go even before that. Get that pixel installed on your site first, because otherwise none of that stuff matters. Yeah. Okay, so get that pixel installed, create just at least one basic website custom audience of all website visitors over the last 180 days. Because I think that's going to be the most useful one, especially since most people aren't going to have huge traffic. The potential there, and again, I know I'm going off topic, to eventually drill down by subject matter that they've read on your website is huge. You could then cater the type of ad to people based on what they read. But again, we're looking way out in the future, just create one for 180 days. So we're driving traffic to your website with something very general, targeting an interest in the beginning. Then we target people who visit your website, again, to keep them engaged. So, maybe you want to build your fan base. I'm not really big on, my fan base is where I need it these days. I don't really feel like I need to mess with it much more. I'm also not as active with my fan base as I used to be, because I don't create as much content as I once did. So you have to think about all those things in terms of how valuable that group of people is to you. But it is a matter of constantly keeping them engaged, creating more content, and then along the way. So these things are all happening in concert, right? So it's not necessarily a direct line. I'm continually giving them more content, but I also want to, along the way, ask them for an email address for something. And that group of people is actually going to be asked for conversion. But the funnel that you described ultimately is absolutely what we're trying to do.
Okay. So you put the pixel on your website, and then you want to create some audiences. Mm-hmm. What is your recommendation around audiences? I always say don't go really wide. You're better to have 10 ads for $1 with 10 different audiences than one ad for $10 with 10, like a great big wide audience, so that you can actually figure out what audience works best. What are your thoughts on that?
In theory, yes. And that's absolutely what I prefer. I prefer a highly relevant. So small doesn't necessarily mean relevant is kind of the problem there, right? I would much rather, though, have a highly relevant audience of 100 people or 1,000 people, whatever it is, than this hugely broad, what Facebook tells me is Facebook advertisers of 3 million people, right? So kind of an example. Let me give you an example. I don't know if you read my post about evergreen campaigns, but this is an example of how you could target an audience of like hundreds as opposed to thousands, or even less than 100, and it's hugely relevant. So basically, the whole premise of it, without getting bogged down in those details, is creating something that's going to keep working. And the reason for that is because we're using website custom audiences over specific durations of people who have visited a very specific page of my site that they'll never visit again, like a thank you page for an opt-in. So basically, if someone opted in for something, we talked about funnels and email funnels. Normally, if they opted in for something, they're going to fall in an email funnel from you, where they're, okay, thank you for subscribing to whatever this is. Now I'm going to indoctrinate you. Here's some additional related information. Here's more about me and my company and what you need to know. Here's a product that you may need to know about. Here are the benefits, that kind of thing. Like, it's probably a series of emails that you're going to send them to kind of get them to buy something. No one does that with Facebook ads for whatever reason. But so basically, you can create this campaign like once they've opted in. Okay, within the first 2 days, let's show them this ad saying, hey, thanks for opting in to this, whatever this PDF is. Here's some more information about me. I'm actually doing something exactly right now. If you were just opted in, you may see that. And then for the next couple of days, like, okay, here's some related content that you may not have read before that's related to this particular topic that you opted in for. And then then you start, again, slowly working out that. But understand that these audiences in this case, we're feeding in people who have opted in for something during a very specific time period, over a 2-4 day period. We're talking about hundreds of people in my case, but it could be 50, it could be whatever. It's a very small audience. So in those cases, I love that. Now, obviously, that doesn't scale real well. So the big and the small both have a purpose. That's why, so for example, when I published that new blog post this morning, I turned it into an ad, and I promoted it to all website visitors for my website. So that's a much broader audience over the last 180 days, because that has a purpose. I want to re-engage and bring them back in. And I'm also spending a little bit more on that. That's like $20 a day for that, as opposed to if I'm targeting people who have just opted in for something and we're talking about 50 or 100 people, I'm only going to spend a couple dollars a day or whatever on that anyway. Mm-hmm. Now, kind of, to answer that question, that audience where I'm targeting 50, 100 people or whatever it is, that is much more likely to result in a conversion, as opposed to this other one where I'm targeting a few 100,000 people. So they all work together, though. I think it's important. I'm not going to abandon targeting those few 100,000 people. That's all important as well.
So if you're thinking about strategy behind how to use it, and you figured out your basic goals. So I want to increase traffic to my website. I want to increase the size of my list, and I eventually want to increase my overall revenue through sales on my website. What are the strategies? Like, what are the things that people should do in terms of ongoing ad strategy, in your opinion? And what is the biggest mistake that they make in terms of implementing that strategy? Every
time I write a new piece of content, I promote it. So Again, I think that's a step that'll be missed by most marketers who trying to tell you how to use Facebook ads. It's all about how to build your email list and how to sell stuff and all these things. Eventually, we want to do that, but you're going to be more successful at those things if you're driving traffic. So every single time, and granted, I'm not on the schedule I used to be, but in the beginning, if I was writing 5 days a week, every single blog post I would promote until the next blog post came out. So these days, if it's a week, I'll promote it for a week until the next blog post comes out. Additionally, you can do things like carousel ads, where they're really effective, where it's like, here are 5 of my most popular blog posts on this topic. And usually get a really good click rate on that, where people are going to your website. So I mean, those are the primary things that I do in order to drive traffic, and it's part of a regular routine. I publish, I share to Facebook, I schedule a campaign immediately.
Mm-hmm. Do you boost, or do you go in and do you use Power Editor all the time, or do you use them all the time?
I'll say 99.9%. Like, for an example, I was on the road, not to boast because it was an awesome vacation. I was in Hawaii like a couple weeks ago, and I published something, or I don't remember what it was, and you have to be on a desktop or laptop or whatever to be able to use Power Editor. Like, I want to quickly turn this into an ad. I boosted it. I'm embarrassed to say, because it's one of those things, like I always say, don't press the boost button. Well, the main thing is Power Editor, you just have more control over it. Like, again, I have a very specific strategy and approach that I use that I can't do from boosting. I'll create multiple ad sets and say I want to target this particular website custom audience, and choose all these placements and this type of bidding and all that kind of stuff that I can't do with boosting. So I call boosting like the gateway drug to the good stuff of Facebook ads. It's like, it's an easy button. It's something that you can use the first few times to get you into it and see that, yeah, there might be something there. It's not necessarily a good long-term strategy. Ultimately, you want to, once you start getting more comfortable, you want to have a little bit more control over that. And that's why Power Editor is so important.
And do you teach people, like, from kindergarten to MBA how to use Power Editor? Because it's pretty confusing. Do you do that in Power Hitters?
I really don't. I really start with college players to the NBA, because that's really my niche, is advanced Facebook marketing. That said, Facebook, one reason I got away, there are lots of reasons I got away from creating courses, is that I got wind that Facebook was creating their own. They created some pretty good training materials. If it's Facebook Blueprint, if you were to Google that, they have really nice. It's free resources of videos and all kinds of content, all kinds of stuff to take you more from beginner to more of an intermediate, where at that point my content may make more sense to you.
Okay, awesome. So what do you believe the ideal mix of a Facebook ad, email marketing campaign, for like Facebook ad to list build to email campaign is, in your opinion?
Can you explain that question a little bit?
Well, people want to use Facebook ads to build their list. So we talked about this a little bit in terms of the strategy. But when you think about somebody wanting to use a Facebook ad to attract traffic to their website, eventually get somebody to sign up on their list, and then they want to nurture that new person with an email campaign. Do you have any recommendations on the best way to do that and the best nurture follow-up, which I guess could be replicated again in terms of ads, but
right.
Do you have a methodology around how do you nurture somebody new on your list?
Well, first of all, I need to get way better on the email side of it. And I've hired someone to help me with that, because I know I'm missing some opportunities there. I use Infusionsoft, and it's something that I have a love-hate relationship with, and I know I'm not using it to its full capabilities. So that said, I think it all depends on the stage you're at. So if you don't yet have much website traffic, if you don't yet have much of an email list, most of your time, your budget, your campaign creation is going to be spent on attracting people into that funnel, driving website traffic. And then, I mean, eventually I feel like I'm more at an even, one third these days of I'm driving traffic. I'm now, remarketing to those people to build my email list. And then while that's going on, my email list is really important. And then I email those people to also, it all feeds on itself. So that drives traffic back to my website. It also helps me sell product. And then I'm running Facebook ads to do the same thing to those people. So I don't know if that answers your question, but I think, again, it depends on the stage, because if you're starting from scratch, you can't spend all your time selling and trying to build an email list. You want to build an email list, don't get me wrong. But again, we're playing the long game, kind of thinking long term here.
Right.
If you want these things to be effective, you need an audience of people who will keep coming back over and over. You want these ads to cost less, and they will cost less if you're targeting the right people. So that's why starting more on the building traffic in the early going.
So question for you, when you started your business, because in your story, you found yourself out of work when you started your business. And so you were in a situation where you kind of really needed to make money, right? And so what would you tell somebody to do who feels like they don't have the luxury of playing the long game? Like they're kind of, in a starving startup situation. What would you advise them to do in terms of using Facebook ads?
Wow. Yeah. My first year, just give some background. This was 4.5 years ago now. I was laid off for the second time in 2.5 years. And at that point, it's like, okay, that's it. I'm not working for the man anymore. I'm tired of commuting. I'm tired of moving my family around. I had some really great jobs that spoiled me. It was also, tough time, the economy. It's like, I'm just going to try to create something. And I say that with no confidence because that's the way I said it, because I had never created a business before. I didn't really know what I was doing. So that first year, that first 4 months, I made zero. I made nothing. Now there is absolutely some, because I didn't know what I was doing. I've never created a business. I didn't really know, other than like working in the real world and kind of being in sort of marketing stuff. I never had to do anything like that or create my own business from scratch. But there's something to be said for that desperation, first of all. Like I'd always had these grand ideas of doing things, and you do them on the side while you have a job, and it's like, that's fun. And you never really think about how I'm going to monetize that and all this. But now I've got, my wife who's looking over my shoulder, like, how are we going to pay these bills? And these boys who, I need to keep these walls around them. And so anyway, even when I look back at that, though, I smile and laugh a little bit. I wrote a blog post after the first year of my business saying how much it costs to run a successful online business. And I spent like $2,500 in that first year, which is ridiculous.
Which ridiculous meaning a lot or not a lot?
No, nothing. For a year to invest in a business is nothing. My point, there are 2 points to that. First of all, you can do things on close to nothing. You really can. But the more you spend, the more you can expect to get out. You've got to take some risk. But I understand we all have, I had no appetite for risk back then. That's why I look back and like, should I have taken more risk? But at the same time, you shouldn't be spending heaps of money until you know what you're doing either, because you will be throwing money away. So know what your appetite for risk is and investment and all. It's just like, playing the stock market in some ways. It's like you don't go out there and spend $10,000 in the stock market until you know what you're doing. So no, I come from both sides. I've done it on practically nothing. I look back and kind of say, wow, I probably could have done a lot better if I invested a little bit more, if I had spent more on my website and photography and spent more on ads. Like I was spending $1 a day on Facebook ads, but have some sort of budget. But other silly things, like, again, to show what an amateur I was in the very beginning, I didn't have an email list for the first 6 months. But little things like that, make sure you have an email list, whether it's MailChimp or whatever, and that you are working to build that as well. So you don't have to break the bank in the early going, but you need to invest in at least some of these really important primary things.
So what did you invest in when you were starting, not knowing? Because I think that's a really important part of your story, Jon. You know, people in startup are the same. Everybody starts their first business the first time without knowing what they know in hindsight. Yeah. So if you were, if there are people listening to this right now and they're thinking like, what do I do? Where do I start? What should I invest in? Like, what kinds of things did you do besides $1 a day on Facebook ads?
I think that's an important one, right? Just having some sort of Facebook ads budget. Don't feel like it all has to be free. So $1 a day, start there. Beyond that, absolutely have some sort of CRM tool, email list building tool. Invest in your website. So this seems ridiculous that I struggled with this in the beginning, but when I created my first website after being laid off, it was a free theme. It was garbage. I created my own logo. It was awful. Like, I am not a designer. It was so awful. And I eventually, I didn't even quote unquote really invest in it. Like, I think it was an exchange of services in 2 cases, for a logo and for photography. So I got some professional photos done. I've only gotten that done twice. Like, I've refreshed that 2 times. I had someone who convinced me, look, dude, you need to buy a pro theme, which to me was a big deal back then. I was like, spend $7,500 on a theme. That's such a silly thing. Now, when I look at it, it's a one-time purchase, and it's night and day in terms of what you look like on the internet. So. So all these kind of front end things as well, like, what is your first impression for people? Make sure those things look good. So whether it's paying for a designer or exchanging services, those are really the bare minimum things you've got to do in the early going.
Now, you use your photo on most of your ads. So yeah. Is that important in terms of brand recognition?
It's something I've ended up doing. Again, I think it's important to have some sort of a personal touch. My photo and my logo has become my brand over the years. It just depends on how people connect with you. Like, I think that's important. I also, again, I'm not a designer. So I had a designer who's awesome. I've been working with her for a long time, who created a bunch of basically blog post feature templates for me. And I needed this because they needed to be a certain size for Facebook sharing, certain dimensions. I need to make sure that they're within the 20% rule, all that kind of stuff. So sure, she could have created a bunch of templates that didn't have my photo in them, but that's just kind of, the direction we went. It was easy to do it that way. I think, for me, look, I sometimes get people like, wow, you sure love yourself. Your photo's all over the place. It's partly branding. It's partly just like, that's what was available. That's the easiest way to create these things. And so, but there's no mistaking who wrote that article. And you start, remembering, that face and who I am, as opposed to blending in with all the other articles about Facebook ads or marketing or social media or whatever. So I wouldn't say that you should do that too, that's important. I definitely see the benefits of that because there's more of a personal connection. The fact that my story, if I'm just a logo and a brand and not a name, not a person, are you going to have that kind of connection with me? I'm not convinced. At least it might be harder in the early going. So that's kind of why I use that approach.
I like it. I think it's important. I think it helps people to know who you are. I know that, and you've probably experienced this when you speak at conferences, people come up to you and they know exactly who you are when they see you, because you look like your picture and they've seen your face enough online that they recognize you. So I do think there's a benefit to that. And definitely I believe there's a benefit in the professional photo shoot. When I just published my first book this year, Jon, and
that's awesome.
I worked with I can't tell you how many different photographers. And the last photographer I worked with, I got her to do a ton of pictures for my website and the book cover. And I spent thousands, like thousands and thousands of dollars on pictures. But it's my brand. And, you know, I had another photographer that took pictures, and my husband looked at the pictures and he's like, they don't look like you. And so that was like a waste of money because they weren't good pictures. So it is important to invest in you and your brand.
Yeah, and two things about that. I'm probably going to forget the second one by the time we get there. When we did it, so as I have a wife and 3 kids, we did it as a part of, okay, let's do family photos too. And then Jon, you stand aside to do your silly professional photos. So that way, you know, then there was, I think, swallowing any kind of cost, you know, was a little bit easier. But yeah, I had, for the first 2 years, I had this one photo that I was known for. It was that serious looking off in the distance photo. And it was black and white. And my wife hated it. And my business manager slash cousin slash backup CEO, John Robinson, talked about how that makes me seem unapproachable. And he had gotten other feedback along those same lines. So when we had this other photo shoot done, it was with the same person, by the way. All of a sudden now we're looking at more color. We're looking at smiling and actually having some personality. But so yeah, all that, which is better? I don't know. I know what my wife would say. She hated that first one. But I mean, these are all things you have to think about. Is, you know, does it look like you? Is it, you know, give that first impression that you want people to have? Does it make you look like someone can talk to, someone can trust? Do you look like a jerk? You know, all those kinds of things.
What is the number one mistake people make when it comes to using Facebook ads, in your opinion?
Oh, number one?
Okay, or 2 to 3 mistakes. What are the top 3? Oh, and you didn't give me the number 2 to the last thing.
I did. Because it was, I don't even remember what we were talking about now. I guarantee that I covered them both. I just might not have said 1 and 2. So anyway, first of all, relying only on the boost button and their targeting. I mean, those are 2 primary that they only rely on interest targeting. I mean, again, we can go through a long list, but only worrying about selling, only worrying about building an email list.
So missing the visibility piece, the content piece.
There's a lot of basics in there that they're just missing. Relying on the wrong metrics, all that. There's lots of stuff. Yeah.
So speaking of metrics, can we talk a little bit about performance? Because I think that there's a lot of confusion there around what is a good performing ad. And I know I had a landing page set up probably about a year ago, and I felt like my click-through rate was really high, but my opt-in rate was really low. I think it was something like a 20% opt-in rate, but I had a really high click-through with a low cost per click. And so something said to me, like, my ad must be good because I'm getting lots of clicks. It's got to be my landing page that's bad. But then somebody else said to me, no, that's actually a good opt-in rate. And I'm like, well, that doesn't make sense to me. So then I did some changes, and I was actually at one point able to get qualified people on my list from a Twitter webinar that I did for like 47 cents. So when you look at performance, can you talk a little bit about, like, how should you evaluate the success of your ads, and are there averages or things you should look for?
Well, first of all, it depends on the objective. So we shouldn't be looking at this, whether something succeeded or failed, based only on how many conversions it lead to. So if my objective was to drive traffic, what was my cost per website click? Let's not get all bent out of shape about the click-through rate or the CPM or any of this other stuff. It was how much did it cost to get a click? Are you trying to build your email list? What was the cost per conversion in that case? You're trying to sell something, what was the cost per conversion? But those costs per conversions are wildly different if you're just trying to get an email address or you're trying to sell something. So you can't compare the two and say, well, this one was more successful than that one because this one was of 50 cents per conversion, and this one was $10. Well, maybe the thing where it was $10 per conversion, you're selling a $500 product, right? So that's the first thing, is really the success or failure comes down to one metric for each campaign, depending on what your objective is. Cost per objective. It's really very simple. And then beyond that, though, like, it's really hard saying what's good and bad, because it's going to depend on the industry. It's going to depend on your situation. Again, it's like, well, what's an ideal cost per sale? Well, what are you selling? Are you selling something that's $10 or $1,000? So you can't kind of say that in a vacuum. And the same kind of thing comes from, with even an opt-in. Now, that 47 cents, I think that you said, is great. It's absolutely great. Obviously, we always care about, what the quality of that group is too. And that's why I also say $2 might be great too. If like a high percentage of those people end up buying something that's a high priced item, fantastic. I generally say we shoot for something in the area of $1 per email address. You're going to get wide variations there. And then for a website click, it really depends on what you're promoting. So if you're promoting something that's just a very helpful article, blog post, and it's promoted to people who know you, who've been to your website before, if it's like a highly engaged industry, like it's entertainment, and you can get a cost per website click of like a penny or less. But that's not realistic for most people. Mm-hmm. But when it's something like, so okay, talk about it as a marketer, somebody who's promoting stuff that's for marketers, I'm generally get somewhere around 10 cents to 20 cents. I won't promote it. I won't keep promoting something that's driving traffic if it's more than 20 cents, just to drive traffic of a helpful blog post. Now, if I'm promoting something that's a product, you get, again, think about this thing. Why is somebody more likely to click a link that's to read something that's interesting, that's helpful or entertaining, whatever, or something that's selling you something? So yes, your cost per website click is probably going to be multiples of that. So maybe that's going to be 50 cents or 40 cents or whatever it is. So all of those are going to be different. That's not in a vacuum. So lots of things. I say this all day long, and I know sometimes it's like, I can't give a clear answer on anything, but there's so many variables to what's good and what's bad that you can't give that kind of answer in a vacuum.
Right. So you offer a one-on-one option on your website. I think it's like $500 for 45 minutes last time I looked. And if somebody wanted your eyes on their ads to kind of critique what they're doing, is that a good use of your time? Like, is that something that you're able to do in that type of time? Or would you say, no, that's not really what that time is good for?
Yeah, look, it's so yes, it's 45 minutes. So is $497 a good investment for you? For someone who doesn't know what they're doing, absolutely not. They need hand-holding. I don't know where to start. Do not spend that money. If you're spending $100 a month on Facebook ads, spending $500 to get me to tell you something doesn't make any sense. So basically, it's got to be, if there can be one takeaway from this, it's going to result in at least $500 in additional revenue for you. That's when you know that this was a good decision. So you basically already have to know enough about what you're doing. We can share screens, look at the ads that you're running and come with suggestions. Look, I've even kind of done some tutorials on the best we can do in 45 minutes. But yeah, ultimately, I think the ideal candidate is someone who's already spending at least $1,000 a month. So we know that a tweak here, some sort of information, just one takeaway. Now, I want to give you more than that, but one takeaway is going to result in making your money back.
Right. Okay.
And that's really just not possible with someone who's a beginner, who's not spending much money at this point, who doesn't know what they're doing. It's all going to be kind of confusing.
Well, I think I need to hire you again, because I think I'm spending the money, but I think I'm just like spray and pray marketing.
Yeah, sure.
And I know that I need to refine what I'm doing. Like I kind of am, it's like I'm looking at the tip of the iceberg, right? I watch what you do and then I try to emulate it without actually knowing the strategy below the water, right? So it's, and I know that when I've talked to you before, you're super smart and super helpful.
Well, thank you. Well, I think one thing is important is try to get to know the tool so much that it's not a matter of trying to kind of copy what someone else is doing, but you start to know all these features and benefits and the potential that you can start doing things that you've never seen anyone do before. Mm-hmm. And that was kind of the whole thought behind like the Evergreen campaign. Sure, I'm sure someone's done something similar to that, but it's a matter of I'm not following what someone else has done and someone's told me to do. I understand the capabilities of this and that. I understand what my needs are. I want to solve this one problem. I'm going to do it because I know that I can, this does that, and this is good for that. So I think that's ultimately the goal, is that we're not following some sort of template, like make sure you use this type of bidding and blah, blah, all this kind of stuff down the road. You see all these templates, these systems that are guaranteed to work, which is a bunch of BS, nothing guaranteed. It's a matter of getting to experimenting so much that you understand what works, what doesn't, and what situation, what your ultimate goals are, so you can do something creative and new without copying somebody else.
Okay, so last question for you. Canvas ads.
Yeah.
What the heck are they? Like I read your blog and I looked at the video and I'm like, I don't even get like, like I saw the mechanics of how to create it, but like what the heck is a canvas ad? Is it something I see on my device? It's like this big long ad? Like what is it?
This is really, I struggle, as you could probably see, I struggled, and probably unsuccessfully, to explain what they are, because until you see one, you don't really know what it is. But you can't, unless I might be missing something. I don't believe I can link to one, but also it's only in a mobile device. And what you see is an ad, looks basically like a link ad for the most part. So it looks like a link ad, except there's like this little triangle on it where you can click kind of to expand, okay? You click on that, this is only on mobile. You build this experience for them, which is in Facebook. So this is kind of similar along the lines of instant articles, anyone who's familiar with that, where there's no this load time to your website where you can lose people. It's created within this Facebook environment. It's instantaneous, but you create this all within the Facebook environment in this case. With instant articles, not to get bogged down in those details, but instant articles, it's still a feed from your website, just in a specific format. Now with this one, Facebook gives you these tools for Canvas to build it. So you can assemble these blocks of information. It could be video, it could be photos, it could be text, it could be carousels. And so when you open that ad, yeah, you've got this, you can scroll through all this stuff. If you've got video, it's going to auto play with sound as you go by it. And then you can hang out there, keep playing sound. And once you go by it, the sound stops. You can also do things like if you're going to do a tour of a home, for example, if you're a realtor, you can create a video where you tilt to pan around the room. And so this isn't even necessarily 360 video. It's just, I did a tilt and pan with the test that I did. Not really the best view, because it was like basically this view right here from my computer. Yeah. And so you could tilt to see different sides of my room, basically. But same thing with images and the different things you can do with images. You can tilt to pan, tap to expand, that kind of stuff. You can drive traffic to your site and create buttons. So basically, it's like a design tool to make it as easy as possible. You can move these modules around, but it's a flow going down because again, you're looking at on your mobile device. That's the best I can kind of explain it. You can also, if you've got a product feed, you can connect that. Like if you do dynamic product ads, which is a whole another product topic.
So like if you're a retailer with a bunch of products, or an internet marketer with a whole bunch of products.
You can also include a product feed box where you can say, okay, include 3 products or 20 products, whatever it is, and Facebook will automatically pull those into your canvas as well. So essentially, the possibilities are kind of endless, which makes it kind of hard to explain it as well. But I think if you Google instant ads, and actually some of these links are within that blog post you mentioned as well. But TechCrunch did an article about it, back when these were first getting tested, and Wendy's was doing some of these ads. Minions did some of these ads. It's an immersive experience unlike anything else you've ever seen with an ad. And it sounds overwhelming. And I guess the fact that I was up until 6 a.m. creating it and writing my tutorial, it can be. But honestly, anyone can create one. It's not, you don't have to be a designer to do it, because Facebook gives you all these tools to create it. It's just, you kind of, again, with everything else, you kind of have to experiment and mess around with stuff before you figure it out.
Mm-hmm. So if you're new to using Facebook ads, you should not jump on the shiny objects of things like Canvas ads and carousel ads and all that stuff. You should start with the basics and master the basics before you go into some of the more complicated stuff.
Yes, that would be a good idea.
Okay, so couple things. Where should people go? I mean, it's easy for me to drop a link in and tell people to go to your website, Jon Loomer, and it's Jon, Jon, Loomer.com. But when they go to your website, what should they do? Are there certain blogs that they should read? Are there certain freebies they should download for Facebook ads? Do you want to send me anything that I can mail my community? Because everybody wants to learn about Facebook ads, and I'm not an expert. I'm a generalist.
Yeah, look, I think the primary thing is, go. I don't even like to tell people to read any of my old stuff, because some of that stuff is so outdated. So I think if you just even go on my most recent stuff, because I don't blog that recently or that often these days, they'll pretty much cover all the biggest things that have been happening over the last few months. That's just a good place to start. You go to my homepage, jonloomer.com. Now I have certain opt-ins, I have my lead ads ebook, which I think is really valuable. I have another ebook that I wrote from a year ago that, okay, you're starting to understand the basics of Facebook ads, but you want to understand kind of the power and the potential of things you can do with it. I did something about, I created this Facebook ads experiment, and that basically treated Facebook ads as an opt-in. So I'm going to serve you exclusive content based on a page that you visited, and that's the only way you can see this content is if you visited this last page. So essentially, I had people begging to see my ads, which is you're never gonna ever see otherwise, unless you get creative. Like I was saying, trying to do things in different ways. So that's that was another ebook. But so all that stuff is available either on the sidebar or in the menu, free stuff. So before you even get into the matter of should I sign for the Power Hitters Club, or should I sign up for a one-on-one, all that free stuff is available as well. That's a good place to start. Okay,
can you tell us a little bit about Power Hitters Club?
So this is really for, again, people who are more advanced. They're already spending, I like to say at least $1,000, but we've got a collection of advertisers, marketers, entrepreneurs, people who work for agencies, big and small, and people are spending hundreds of thousands of dollars per month, from $500 to $1,000 a month, and all kinds of industries. But the Power Hitters Club is a community of advanced Facebook marketers. And so this isn't supposed to be a hand-holding, this is how you do Facebook ads, but I also understand it's overwhelming. We all run into kind of roadblocks every day and issues and all kinds of stuff. New stuff is released all the time. So first of all, we have this community of this really helpful community. So it's not like an Ask Jon forum, which is something I've completely tried to avoid. Because I don't have all these experiences that some other people have in a different industry and maybe spending hundreds of thousands a month, for example. So people sharing their stories, asking questions, answering questions within that private group. But I also have weekly webinars for that group, so that absolutely look what's happened over the past week. We can talk now. I can talk more about Canvas. I can, all this stuff that's happening that you should know about, that's being tested right now, little tutorials, all this stuff within 30 minutes. There's also Q&A at the end. And then I do workshops, virtual workshops for this group only every 2 months. So my last one was on the Facebook Pixel. So it's a deep dive in that topic, usually at least 90 minutes, some of them in 2 hours, diving into that topic and answering questions. So that's in a nutshell what Power Hitters Club is all about.
And so when somebody joins Power Hitters Club, do they get the recordings from the previous workshops and deep dives that you've done?
They do. So There have been 89 webinars, weekly webinars. I've never missed one, even on a holiday. I just do a recording instead. And my workshops, there have been 6 of them now.
Wow.
So yeah, but again, one of the reasons I created the Power Heroes Club, because I want to get away from the course structure, since things change too often, right? So even though those recordings are all available, the value in my mind is more about the real-time training. It's what is happening right now. What's the most recent webinar? How can I help this community? How can they help me? Here's another workshop, as opposed to like, oh, there are 89 webinars and six workshops I can watch. Some of it's not even relevant anymore. That's because that's the nature of the beast. So that's why I love this approach of real-time training, because things are just changing all the time.
That's awesome. Great. All right, Jon.
Yeah.
I know you've had like next to no sleep. And you were great. You answered a ton of questions. I really, really, really appreciate you, and I appreciate your time. I appreciate everything that you have given us today on this interview. It's fantastic, and I know I need your help, so I will be in touch soon. Is there anything else you'd like to add before we wrap up?
Man, I really appreciate you, Lisa. Yeah, I have my double shot espresso coffee here, so it kept me going. But I'll certainly crash here soon. But no, thanks for having me, and for everybody else for listening. JonLoomer.com. If you got any questions, you can send to info@JonLoomer.com. @Jon Loomer on Twitter. Jon Loomer Digital on Facebook. That's all I got. So yeah, thanks. Thank you.
Thanks so much. All right, everybody, thank you. I will definitely be sharing a recording of this. I may even get it transcribed because Jon's that awesome. I appreciate you all being here today.